Okay guys, super important video this one. We're going to be breaking down qualifying questions, which in my opinion is one of the most important parts of lead generation advertising. So what even is a qualifying question? A qualifying question is a short question that we chuck onto our initial lead form. We are essentially going to be identifying a prospect by checking their buying intention, by checking their budget, their timeline, or their overall eligibility for whatever the offer is that our client is selling. Qualifying questions are probably one of the most important aspects of lead generation marketing because, trust me, if your clients are not making the sales that they want, the very first thing they're going to be coming to you saying is, oh, the leads are bad. And, if you're going to take that type of criticism of it's the lead's fault why you're not making the deals, we need to know, okay, what is a good lead? And you're going to be able to have to, define that and clear yes or no criteria questions, which is why qualifying questions help us a lot. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of why we need to filter out the leads and make sure we're only sending through the ones of a certain level through to our clients is because a good lead is subjective, isn't it? A good lead means different things to different people. And ultimately, if we're going to be exchanging our clients' time, because that's ultimately what we're selling, isn't it? These people are going to have to spend 20, 30 minutes on a call with someone, and it is going to be extremely frustrating to them if they spend all that time with that person and they say, yeah, I don't got any money right now, but in 6 months, or something like that. We need to understand what a good lead means to our client and make sure that we are sending leads of that criteria to our client through the use of these qualifying questions. So a way that you can kind of kick people out that don't pass the criteria and keep the people in is something called conditional logic. As we will go through in the when you carry on with the lead form video, there will be a section at the top when you come to the question section, and that bit says conditional logic here. Just think of qualifying questions as creating a really clear criteria of who's actually going to qualify for a lead and who does not. So it makes no sense, but the majority of leads that sign up for anything are people that don't really want it. And unless you've got some, parameters around what we are defining as a lead and something to control the quality of these leads, you're just going to be creating misleading numbers and giving inaccurate performance updates to your clients, which are going to wind them up. Because the most annoying thing that's going to happen to these clients is if they spend 100 hours speaking to people that don't even pass the minimum criteria, because they're going to pay in either time or money. They're paying in money because their ad spend is bringing in these leads that they can't sell to because they don't fit the minimum criteria. Then they're also paying in time, because all the guys that you're going to be working with are busy business people anyway. So when you're telling them to take, you send them 30 calls this week, but you haven't controlled the criteria of these leads, it might be 30 minutes a call. So not only have you stripped their bank account, you've also stripped them of their time. That's only the two ways that people can pay for anything in this world. In terms of adding these qualifying questions onto a lead form, there's an art to doing this, because think about the nature of how that person even came across your advert. Most people open up Facebook and Instagram to procrastinate the majority of the time. So these people are not actively looking for you. Something that's caught their eye has popped up and they want to register their interest. But ideally, they want to come on the platform for the main reason, which is to procrastinate and probably check out some funny videos or whatever. So don't leech these people's time too much, because, I know you want to send your clients as good leads as you can, but asking 20 qualifying questions is not going to be the way to do that, because people can't be asked to give you that much time, especially at this stage. And on top of that, the more qualifying questions that you ask, it's harder for that person to get through. And also, you're creating a really specific criteria, and there will be less people that can obviously fill that in. So if you ask too many qualifying questions, your cost per lead is going to absolutely skyrocket. Or if you make these questions too hard, because as you can imagine, there's less people that will get through that criteria, and there'll be less people that can be asked to even tell you if they get through that criteria. So there's a real art to doing this. In my opinion, the best practice is to think of quality questions instead of the quantity. What I always say to the clients is kind of make the questions around a 7 out of 10 level difficulty, and maybe just ask 2 or 3. You want to ask as little as possible, really, because we do want as many leads coming in. So if you can define a good lead as just they get through this one qualifying question, then use that. But for me, normally a sweet spot is around 2 or 3 really good quality questions. That way, you're not leeching too much time on the person filling it out, but you are controlling the lead quality. You are making sure that these people do need to have a bare minimum criteria. And in terms of how you get these people to fill out these questions, don't ask people to write short or long answers. It needs to be multiple choice, but even now I wouldn't really be doing that. The best practice is a clear yes or no criteria. That way, if they say no, you can boot them out. If they say yes, they can carry on. Your client should be helping you with that, because ultimately they're going to know better than you who a good lead is to them. And if they can't identify it in the yes or no questions, then we're just shooting in the dark. They don't even know what a good lead is. So I'm just going to give you some examples of different styles of qualifying questions. The first one and the most popular one is a price qualified lead. In marketing slang, you'll hear this referred to as a PQL. The most common objection your clients are going to have is that people are saying that they can't afford it. Now, you can use these qualifying questions, but ultimately most people can afford stuff. You know, that you get price objections when the amount that that person thinks this is worth, the perceived value, does not match up to the monetary value of that person is asking. So I don't always like asking these qualifying questions, because your client is good at sales. They should be able to raise the perceived value, which automatically raises how much that person thinks they should pay for it. But sometimes, you know, if you've got an expensive service and you're saying, like this question here, this service requires a minimum of £2,000. Do you have this? If that client says no, then there is no point that person kind of pitching them, is there? Because they can give the world's best sales pitch. But if that person just doesn't have the money, they're not going to buy it, all right? So some people add these questions, and that can be something which really improves your lead quality. Another example is a readiness qualifying question. So something to note here, only 3% of the leads, any type of lead generation advertising that you're doing, are in a position where they're ready to go right now. Majority of them are going to need nurturing, but we can kind of get the gauge of when their rough timelines are by using multiple choice questions. An example here would be, what is your timeline for starting? ASAP, obviously that's a lead. This month, that would be a lead. In the next 2 to 3 months, that's still a lead. But if they're not sure yet, it's likely that they're just looking around. They don't have any proper intention of doing it. So that might be someone that you want to kick out. So another example is a prerequisite qualifying question. This is when you need that lead to fit a really niche specific criteria before they can advance. So, you know, this might depend industry to industry, but if you're in property finance, you can say, do you have an offer accepted on the property? Obviously, if that person said no, they're not going to need help funding it, are they? Another example would be, are you a UK resident? We're essentially using it where you just need to have a clear yes or no, and we can just overcome those black and white objections. If it was for a mortgage broker or whatever, you could ask these clients, do you have at least a 20% deposit available? Because that is what is needed. This one I use quite a lot. I find it quite helpful. You can do a location qualifying question. Meta's targeting in terms of the location area, it's pretty good, but it's not 100% accurate. And if your location is going to directly impact your lead quality, such as if you're working with someone that does kitchens and bathrooms and he's only prepared to travel an hour from his postcode, then this might be a good time to use these type of qualifying questions. So you could say, is the property located in one of our approved areas? You write out the main areas of what this guy wants to work in. And, you know, if they say yes to any of those areas, then he can become a lead. If they say no, then you can cut him. Or you can ask it in a simpler way. Are you within 30 miles of Manchester? Most people are going to get a gauge of something like that if you're using the main city. And if they say yes, they could be a lead. And if they say no, they could boot them out. If you are getting, because I get it all the time, you know, you had people complain about the radius of where their leads are coming from, especially when it is stuff like this. So adding this question in from the get-go is a great way of combating that objection before it even happens. So just making it clear, the best practices for these qualifying questions, always make sure there's a clear right and wrong answer. That is the whole point of these qualifying questions. We're using it to lead filter. We want to kick out people that our client isn't going to be able to take money from, because at least we buy back their time with this. You're never going to make it perfect. The majority of leads that sign up for anything are not going to advance. But if there's ways that we can somewhat control the lead quality, of course, we want to do that. The question should be short. The lead was not searching for you, remember, and people's attention spans are at an all-time low. So make sure it's short. Ideally, you just want to be asking stuff in yes or no questions. If you can't do that, you could do the odd multiple choice question, but nothing more than those two. Decisions need to be made really quick. Qualifying questions are a way of objection prevention. So we're trying to, you know, your client is always going to have to do objection handling, trying to convince that person that they're the best option. But it's there just to stop, you know, those absolute roadblocks of this person could not go ahead unless they had X. Yeah, that's the main reason why you do this. As your campaigns run, your clients are going to obviously encounter different types of objections, and you'll never be able to perfectly plan for it. So it's likely that our qualifying questions are going to change. There's no pressure to get this bang on straight away from the get-go. As your campaigns run longer for your clients, you should be getting in touch with them. Why are these leads bad? What are the objections that you're having? And then kind of tweaking those qualifying questions to kind of overcome those objections. Your clients are always going to find new black and white reasons why certain people can't advance. Updating these questions ultimately will improve your lead quality and, again, will protect your clients' time. Just some stuff to bear in mind here, though. There are only so many factors that are in your control. All lead generation advertiser can do is put the client in front of someone that has filled out a form. Sometimes people lie on that form. That does not mean you suck at marketing and they suck at sales. That is just part of the game, you know. But ultimately, a lot of the time when you are receiving complaints about lead quality, 99% of the time is because your qualifying questions, they're not clear enough or they're not strict enough. And that a lot of time is the client's fault, but you need to take responsibility here and assume it's because you haven't been communicating with them clearly enough to understand their problem. It is your job to make sure that you're able to extract the correct criteria from the client of what a lead is and update their questions based on their feedback. I mean, if you can do this proactively without that client even having to give you feedback, that's going to really, really help you. And ultimately, the success of your campaigns are going to come down to the structure and the clarity of these questions. So really make sure you're spending a lot of time on this, okay? So if that's all good, let's go ahead and get on to the next video.